Hello and welcome to Lunch and Learn Wednesdays. My name is Jacob Falkenberg. I'm the Communication and Member Services Director at Venture Portland. And today we're going to be talking about city charter changes at the City of Portland. And we've got a very special guest, a member of the City Charter Change Committee, Lori Heffel. Welcome, Lori. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Let me, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, that look good?
Looks great.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody for inviting me. I imagine there are some of you that might have been on the call when I did this before. So there's updated information. In fact, I'll probably reference my notes every once in a while because they're always changing the slides on me. But because it's changing, it's a humongous change and there's a lot going on. And so I'm happy to share it with you. Just a little bit about myself. I worked at Intel Corporation for 21 years and retired a couple years ago, got involved in some nonprofit work in the city and started following the Charter Commission and really thought that what they were doing and what they were proposing was foundational to some of the changes that we'd like to see in our city. And so when they put a call out for volunteers on the several different committees, this one looked like something that I could help with. So I got involved in this. It's called the Government Transition Advisory Committee, and I'll tell you a little bit about our committee. But so that's how I've gotten engaged. I've never been in politics or in government before. So it definitely was like drinking from a fire hose, getting started with this committee. And I've learned a lot. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of things I don't know. So Jacob and I talked ahead of time about questions that you might have. So I am prepared to answer some more business specific questions. But if needed, I might be writing down a question and I'll follow up with you with answers. So I want to make sure you get what you need, but I might not have all of it. So the Government Transition Advisory Committee, we're a 15-member body. We started up about a year ago, and we will run through the transition through March of next year. We are a very diverse group of folks. We're from all over the city. We've got probably, multiple ethnicities, gender, age, skill sets, as diverse as you can be. We try to be representative of the Portland citizens. And one thing that we do have in common, though, is we really want to see this transition be successful. And there are those of us on the committee that voted for the charter amendment and those of us that did not. So we have lots of rousing discussions because we're coming from different places. But like I said, we all want to see this successful. We're doing it. And right now we're just behind it and pushing it through. The three main roles that we have in our job as a committee member is to ensure that the charter amendments are implemented effectively and efficiently following the city's core values. Second, we are the main community engagement body. So our job is to do this, is to get out in the community and educate people on what's going on, answer their questions, and also be a conduit for your feedback. So we listen to what we hear out there. We get, in fact, we have a meeting tonight and we'll go over all of the comments. So we take a look at every comment that gets sent in. We talk about these engagement opportunities that we have and what we hear from people. And we use that information to formulate how we advise the city, which is our third role, is strategically advising the city on the changes that they're making. Make sure that the community's voice is heard and that we do it in an efficient and effective manner. Our meetings are public. We meet once a month. We also have subcommittee meetings that are meeting. So I bet there's a meeting almost every week that has something to do with our advisory committee. You can go to this website that's listed at the bottom of the slide, and it has all of our upcoming meetings. It even has the past meetings. They've all been recorded. You can look at materials. And the great thing about our meetings is that everything having to do with the transition comes through our meeting. So if you're interested in the budget, you're interested in the organization, in the facilities upgrades, whatever, somebody's coming in and talking to us about it. So please look ahead at some of our meetings and the agenda and consider joining us. We take public comment also. So if you're passionate about something, you can comment. At the end, I'll give you some information on how you can stay in touch with us. But it's easy to send me an email, or I'll show you an email at the end to get more information. So the changes, three main things that were voted in last November, a year ago, November. First, we currently we have one vote for each candidate in our city government. And coming up in November, we're going to be able to rank our choice of candidates, and I'll talk more about that. Also, we typically would have citywide elections, and we're moving to having 4 geographic districts. We'll still vote for the mayor and the city auditor citywide, but our representatives will be voted for by district, and you can only vote for the ones that are running in your district. And third, the form of government is changing, which is the one that I'm most excited about. We currently have a commission form of government. We are one of the last cities of our size that has a commission form of government. We have 4 commissioners and a mayor that oversee the bureaus and create policy for the city. And we're going to move to what's called a mayor council form of government, where we will have 12 city councilors who will set policy, and a mayor with the help of a city administrator that will run all the bureaus. And I'll talk about each of these. This is, let me just double check this. Oh yeah, our hope is that these changes will mean that our government will work better for everybody, and the government will be more effective and accountable and representative. Oops, I always forget there's these arrows, sorry. So countdown, there's a lot that has been going on. You'll see on the left there in November of 22 was when voters approved the changes. It was voted in at 58% positive for the charter changes. Right away after the vote, the transition team was put in place, and they started working on districts and ranked choice voting and the form of government, and starting to work on committees and public education. Last August, the geographic districts were set and the elected official salaries were set. Last November, the initial organization structure was determined. That the main reason that they had to do that so early is that's when they start the budget season. And in order to create the budget, which interestingly enough straddles the old and the new government because the fiscal year is July to July, they needed to understand what the city structure was going to look like. So having new staff members and reorganizing it so that it reported under one person meant that there would be staffing changes. So they started early on that org structure, and they approved it in city council last November. This spring, voter education will get started. So right after the May primaries, you'll see a lot of information about ranked choice voting. In the summer, they'll adopt the new budget. And then in November, we'll have the election using ranked choice voting for the first time and using the geographic districts. And then in January, the new government will take effect. So speaking about form of government, as I mentioned, today we've got 4 city councilors plus the mayor, and there are about 28-ish bureaus and a bunch of programs, and it's split amongst the 5 people in city council. And we're moving to where no longer will city council oversee bureaus, but instead city council will be made up of 12 councilors who will set policy. So they'll represent their constituents and then legislate, and set policy for the city. The mayor will appoint a city administrator, and the 2 of them will use those policies to inform how they then manage all of the bureaus and run the city. So we will now have a professional who will oversee this enterprise of 7,000 people and $7 billion budget. There will be professionals running the city and the bureaus. So while this is really new to Portland, It's not new in the country. There are a lot of cities that run with a mayor council form of government. And the transition team, as well as GTAC, which is a Government Transition Advisory Committee, we call ourselves GTAC. The transition team and GTAC have been doing research on the different cities in the country that are of a similar size that have this form of government, and looking at how the council runs and making recommendations. So we're collecting information right now. And in fact, I'll tell you a little bit about an opportunity that's coming up. I'll tell you about it at the end for you to participate in that. But we're collecting information, and our plan is to create a recommendation document that we'll be giving to the new city council with our recommendations on how the council should function. Looking at things like standing committees and how they take public comment. What do district offices look like, or should they have them, or how does the council interact with the community? So we're making recommendations on all of that based on best practices that we're finding out about. Here's the new city organization. I'm glad you're sitting in front of a screen so that you can look at it close up. There's a lot of detail on here. We needed to, I mentioned that they worked on this all of last year and approved it last November. And it was important to get that done before they started working on the budget, because they realized that with a city administrator in place, and well, the mayor and the city administrator, it would be pretty tough to have all of these bureaus and programs directly reporting to one person. It was maybe a little easier when you had 5 people to have these things report up into, but it didn't make sense to have them report that way into a city administrator. So they did an analysis to understand what bureaus work together frequently, and they put them together in what they call service areas. So those colored boxes along the right-hand side, those are the new service areas. There's budget and finance, city operations, community and economic development, which note is the one that you probably will be really engaged with, public safety, vibrant communities, which is the arts, parks and recreation, natural area and tree management. So it's kind of a new name. And then public works. So all of these service areas will have a new role called a deputy city administrator. So the deputy city administrator oversees that service area. And I think the beneficial thing of having these service areas is these groups that typically work together, now they're underneath one management structure. And so they'll be able to find efficiencies. So not everybody needs their own communication person. When they set a budget, they can trade and work together on how do we want to use the money allocated to this service area. Things like in the community and economic development, when they're looking at permitting, you've probably already heard that they're doing permitting now under one umbrella. Well, the other areas that work with them are all in the same bureau with them, and there'll be a deputy city administrator responsible for ensuring that those groups work together and get the work done. So all of those service areas report into the city administrator. You'll see the city administrator also has some other direct reports. They have assistant city administrator that has some interesting roles. So as I talked about communication, there will now be a central communications person who will oversee communications for the whole city. So that should ensure, I don't know how many of you follow some of our current city councilors, but they have different ways of communicating. Some are better than others, some are more accessible. Well, this communication person will make sure that it has the same look and feel, is equivalent across all the areas. There'll be somebody organizing community and city life. There'll be a council operations person that will oversee how the new future city council operates and interacts with the city. There'll be an Office of Government Relations, and then Portland Solutions that will include some of our more thorny issues like things with houselessness. Then a new thing, equity officer. So instead of having equity person in some areas and not in other areas, now there's going to be one person that reports directly to the city administrator. So it gets a lot more visibility, and they'll be overseeing equity across all of the bureaus. And a sustainability officer. So that person also will look at sustainability for the whole city. So some interesting ways of elevating things that are really important and align with the values of Portland City. Then over to the left, you'll see the elected officials. We have the mayor, and the mayor will have 4 people that he's appointing, he or she is appointing. Like I said, the city administrator will work for the mayor, the city attorney, the chief of police. So the mayor is going to retain managing the chief of police, even though there is still a public safety bureau or service area. But the chief of police will work directly for the mayor and a chief of staff. Then you can see the Portland City Council is another elected body, and then the auditor. So the leadership team for the mayor is the city administrator, the city administrator's direct reports, those, the assistant, the equity officer, sustainability officer, and then the 6 bureaus. So I personally think it's a great opportunity for us to run the city like the enterprise that it is. It is a 7,000 person organization. So having it set up like this and run by some professionals, I think will ensure accountability and efficiency and ensuring the things that Portlanders are needing to get done gets done. Facilities, it would be impossible if any of you have gone to City Hall. You probably realize that it would be pretty tough for 12 people to sit around the table and deliberate. So this is a rendering of the renovations for City Hall. So they currently have vacated City Hall in its typical spot, and our city councilors and the mayor, when they are having session, they're over in the 1900 building on 4th and Harrison. It's still open to the public. You're still welcome to go and sit in on city council meetings or attend virtually. That's still available to you while they renovate this City Hall chambers. They're also renovating the office areas. So we had 5 elected officials in there, and now we're going to have 12 plus the city administrator, plus the mayor, plus their staff. And so they're renovating the office areas to be able to accommodate all of those people. And city council still has their offices in City Hall, but around mid-year, they'll be moving out over to the 1900 building. So if you're looking for them, they're still in City Hall, but they will be moving. And everything is supposed to be ready by the end of the year to accommodate, all the new people coming in. Districts. So hopefully you're all aware that they've set the districts. So last summer, I really enjoyed following the work that they were doing. They had a piece of software that you could get in and play around with it yourself and draw your own boundaries and see the results of the number of people that lived in your district and what their demographics were all about. And you could submit those for the district commission to take a look at. The district commission had a lot of different options that they were looking at. They finally came up with 3, and they took those around and had listening sessions. We had over 2,000 participants, either online or in person, that provided comment to the districts. They took that information back and integrated it and massaged their different ideas and came up with this final one that they voted on unanimously. So these are the new districts. We will have District 1 is the furthest east, essentially east of the 205. I mean, you can see some of the dividers on here. District 2 is the northernmost district. 3 is inner southeast, and then 4 is for the most part west of the Willamette. And districts 1 and 2 and the mayor, well, all 4 of these and the mayor and the auditor will be voted for in this November. But 1 and 2 and the mayor will be in office for 4 years, starting January 1st of 2025. Districts 3 and 4 and the auditor will just be in place for 2 years this time, so that we can stagger the city councilors coming in and we're not turning everybody over at the same time. So then after that 2 years, those people will be voted in for 4 years, and it'll continue like that. What else about the districts? Oh, if you're wondering which district you're in, you can go to the portlandmaps.com and put in your address. and you can see which district you're in. And if you're interested in running for city office, it's not too late. In fact, filing doesn't start until June, and you need to submit it by the end of August. Lots of people have already announced their intention. We're not sure whether they'll all file or not, but I would say there's probably at least 50 people who have announced intention. About the same in each of the districts, and a few candidates for mayor, which you've probably seen in the newspaper. The city elections office has a website that is full of information, qualifications and requirements for running. And they're doing learning sessions. They did one in January and it was recorded. So if you go to the portland.gov/elections, you can find that learning session and you can watch it. Part of it talks about the transition, kind of some of the materials I'm sharing with you. It goes into detail about voting. And then the rest of it is all about what does it take to run? What are the qualifications and requirements? What about fundraising? What about the small donor program? So it's very informative. So if you're interested, have any interest at all, I encourage you to watch the learning session. There's a couple live ones coming up in May and June. So there's opportunity, for you to get more information. Let me get my notes here, so I'll make sure I tell you about this. So ranked choice voting is the last of the changes that I'm going to talk about. This is what a sample ballot would look like when we get together in November. Well, you'll get it in the mail before that. You'll have the opportunity to rank up to 6 candidates, and for each rank choice, like rank 1, 2, 3, you get to vote for one person. Let's see, I'm going to read off of my notes here just because this is kind of new. It can be used in races to elect one winner or multiple winners, and the ballot will look the same for both, but the process counting the votes is a little bit different. Ranked choice voting eliminates the need for May primaries. So while there will be a May primary, it will not include city elections. So we will not do any city elections until November. As you can see from the sample ballot, voters can rank up to 6 candidates. You're not required to use all 6 rankings. If the voter only likes one candidate, they're absolutely allowed to just rank one candidate. However, it's important to know that second and third choices are just backups in case your favorite candidate is out of the race. So encourage you to, rank backups. If your first one makes it, great. If it doesn't, and there isn't a candidate in the first round that gets the requisite number of votes, then we go to the second choice. So you get the opportunity to have your vote count. After council adopted the updates to the election code in April of last year, Multnomah County developed a plan with its software vendors to update the software code for vote tabulation. Because voters reside in Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties, all 3 counties are working together to ensure there's a coordinated approach for administering the elections for Portland's ranked choice voting contests, including designing of the ballots and the system to provide the centralized tabulation of all vote data that ranked choice voting requires. So currently the software has been updated and it's going through a rigorous certification process to ensure that there are no issues. And because we aren't the first ones to do ranked choice voting, it wasn't hard for us to understand what was necessary to update the software. It's just copying from other cities that have done the same thing. Then education resources. So if you go to this website, there's a lot more information about voting. Also, we will be doing more specific education. So our group is going to transition from spending more time on all the different things that are changing and spending more time in the future on just teaching you how to vote. So there'll be mock mock elections. We'll get to practice on voting ballots. You'll see it in the mail. You'll see it on TV. I think the plan is to completely inundate people so that no one can say that they didn't know how to use ranked choice voting. We also have some grants that you may have read about in the paper that they're putting out. So one of the things that's really important to us is to ensure that people who have been typically left out of City Hall get the education that they need to understand how to vote. And so there are grant applications being taken now by nonprofits who typically communicate with harder to reach voters. And the city is giving money to help them educate people out in the city. So I hope that you will be really sick of hearing about ranked choice voting, and we're not starting until after the primaries, because we want to make sure that we're not confusing folks, because at the primaries for the other things that you'll be voting for, we will not be using ranked choice voting. So you don't really need to know about how to do it until after May. Some of the upcoming events, the Government Transition Advisory Committee is meeting tonight. Then we have listed here our monthly meetings. And then on the right here is about the listening sessions that I mentioned. So we recorded one of them, and you can actually go online and watch the recording and fill out a survey so that you'll answer questions about how you would like to interact with your city government, what you'd like to see for standing committees, or how you like to be able to reach, or what are your issues with reaching people in the city. Or you can come to these Zoom sessions on March 14th or 21st, or there's an in-person session on March 19th, and it's all to collect your input on how you'd like to see your future city government run. It actually has information on how it runs now, the presentation, as well as the changes that have already been adopted for the future. So they've already been looking at some things. And then the opportunity, there'll be some breakout sessions to talk about the changes and get your feedback. So take a look at portland.gov/transitions/events to get information on how to participate in those sessions. And then, like I said, we are giving these presentations all the time, and our goal is to just engage and inform everybody. So if you have an organization that you'd like to have this presentation, or maybe one of the ranked choice voting presentations after May, please ask. We want to be out there. We want to answer your questions. We want to hear from you. I also encourage you to go to the website. There is all kinds of good information on all the topics that I shared with you in much more detail. And if you have questions, you can always email the transition team. There's actually a live person at the end of that email, and they read your question and they will answer you. And then we look at your questions to make sure that if a lot of people are asking those questions, that's something that we ought to be paying attention to and doing something with. So there really is no reason why you shouldn't get the information that you need. I'm also a conduit. So if you have a question, I'm happy to get you talking to the right person or get the information for you. And happy to come back here too as we get closer to voting time and talk about ranked choice voting. So with that, I'll wrap up my talking. And like I said, this is a conversation, so I'd love to hear what your questions are, what your concerns or your thoughts are, and I'll try to answer as much as I can.
Thank you, Lori. A lot of good information here that I think people are still trying to wrap their heads around. So definitely appreciate you breaking it down for us. And Lori is going to try to answer any questions that you all might have, but also is collecting feedback. So if you had ideas for the new city charter and new city government, it's a work in progress. So it's not too late to get your opinion in on how you think it should be organized and run. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. I saw a couple came in the chat as Lori was giving her presentation. The first comes from Craig. It looks like Craig says, can you elaborate on the equity officer and sustainability officer roles that you had talked about?
Well, I have two ways to answer that. First is that no, I can't. But the good news is that we just got this in our meeting last week in our sub-team meeting. So there's going to be a program manager for each of the new roles. And they're just starting up, they've named the program managers. They're just going to be starting up to define the roles. So they are collecting feedback from the city. They're looking at the comments that we've gotten in the past. I'm told that they may actually be going out to the community to get feedback. So they're trying to put at least some structure around what those roles will look like. It will be at the discretion of whoever the city manager is to further define them, but we're trying to do the most that we can to have them well prepared and have at least something to start from when the city manager comes into place.
Great, thanks. We look forward to getting more updates on that as that's solidified. Joy had a question about the city administrator. Is that person's chosen solely by the mayor, or will there be an election for that? And how's that shaping up to work?
Well, so there is a search firm from Portland that's already been identified, and the transition team is already working on a job description. And we haven't seen it actually I think that the organization is coming to our meeting tonight to talk a little bit about their search plans, but they'll be looking US wide for this person, and the new mayor will be hiring this person. They will hire them with the approval of city council. So the actual search won't start. Well, I think that this search firm, what I understand, will be starting to flesh out some ideas. And honestly, I'm also told that people know this role is opening up, and people that are city administrators are already watching and making themselves known, paying attention. I don't know who they are, but they're paying attention to this job because it's a pretty neat job for a person coming in and getting to start fresh with a new government. So when the mayor comes in January, so I didn't mention this earlier, in July of this year, the government is going to change over to the new form. So they're going to be putting people in service areas and having a deputy administrator, an interim deputy administrator over each city service area. And there will be an interim city administrator. And we'll try to run the government that way for 6 months before the election so that we can work some of the kinks out. And that interim city administrator will likely be the person who's overseeing this transition. It'll be appointed by the current mayor. And that person's name is Michael Jordan. And I've heard him say that the first thing that he will do when the new mayor comes in place is to talk to that person and say, we need to work on hiring the full-time city administrator. So that will be one of the first tasks that'll happen. But I suspect it'll be several months before someone is actually named. So there'll be an interim city administrator in place until that person starts up.
That's great to hear, because we were wondering about that with the elections in November and then everything officially starting in January. It doesn't give you a whole lot of time to find and hire someone. So it's great that they've got a system in place to do kind of a trial run just so there's not a gap there.
Right.
To make sure there's a smooth launch for everything.
Yeah, we recognize the city doesn't stop, so it needs to continue to be managed the whole time.
And speaking of the city administrator, you showed a really helpful graphic that kind of laid out how that person is managing all the deputy administrators and communications person for each of the there's not clusters for the bureaus that are all kind of classified into similar things that hopefully will make them communicate with each other better and make things a little bit more efficient. Do we know yet if a small business has a question, who is the best person for them to contact? Is it the deputy administrator for the economic development group? Is it the communications person that oversees the communications for the whole city? Or is that still kind of in development?
I think there are several ways that a small business could get their needs met. So If it's something specific like having a problem with my sidewalk or crime, you could go directly to the deputy administrator that oversees the bureau where your issue resides, like public safety. If it's a permitting issue, you would go to the economic development deputy administrator. The other place that you can go is to your city councilor in your district of where your business is. So the great thing is there'll be 3 in every district. So we don't know yet how you will contact them, but I'm sure we're going to provide recommendations on how you should to this new city council. And I think those city councilors are going to make it very known, how to get a hold of them. In lieu of any of that, there's the 311. Are you familiar with using 311? It's the way you can call or email in and just ask generally, like, I don't know how to get this problem solved. Who do I talk to? So that is in place now, and that'll be in place then too. But I was also told, FYI, I kind of followed up on some of the questions that you talked to me about, Jacob. And one of the things that I heard is that Venture Portland will continue to have a liaison relationship with the city. In the past, this role was filled by the mayor or delegated by the mayor to a commissioner. And it's saying in the new organization that was adopted by city council, it establishes that the mayor will serve as the liaison for this organization. And that the deputy city administrator for community and economic development will also establish relationships with organizations like Venture Portland. So that's already been decided.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, we're on the same page, Lori. Thank you for that. You've sort of been on pins and needles, like, how's this going to work out? So that is wonderful to hear. Thank you so much.
Sounds like they had you in mind well in advance.
Excellent.
Okay, well, continue to drop your questions into the chat or just raise your hand and chime in. This is very informal, so we want to make it conversational. And we have some time for questions, so we want to be able to answer everybody's questions if we can. It looks like Melanie asks, are there term limits? I'm guessing this is for both the commissioners and the mayor, the administrator. Are they all different? Are they all the same? Do you have any information on that, Lori?
I'm sure there are, and I don't know, and I'm writing it down so I can send it back to you. That seems like an easy one that I should know. I just don't know.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for looking into that for us. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about the system that is currently under development? I know Lori is collecting feedback, so if you have heard from your member businesses about their concerns or ideas that they have to make it more efficient and easier for them to communicate with the city and take care of any issues that might crop up, now is a great time to share that with Lori so she can pass it along to the rest of the committee.
While you're thinking, I can also share one of the things that I've gotten asked about with a different business group that I've spoken to is so you're in an interesting position in that you have to vote for counselors where you live, but your business may be in a different district. So what do you do with that? And how do you advocate or ensure that someone that you'd really like to see elected gets elected? And the feedback that I've gotten from the city is that you should ask the candidate directly for what they need. So what are they missing? Do they need more communications? Is there in-kind donations you can provide, of your support? Do they need finances? Just talk directly to the candidate that you're interested in, that you want to see get elected, and see what they want. And they will also have a lot more information about the campaign finance laws and make sure that, whatever money you may donate to them is used appropriately, or you're not hitting upon any limits or nonprofit status issues or whatever. So the key is talk to the candidate that you want to see get elected.
Absolutely, and there's certainly going to be a lot of them with 3 in each district. And then
Mhm.
potentially a business owner lives in a different district than their business is located. They want to be thinking about that too, as far as who they're endorsing, if anyone. I think Sherry Lynn had their hand up. Did you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I joined late, so I have 2 questions. One is this being recorded and will there be information shared after the meeting? Sounds like there were visuals that were shared earlier.
Yeah, so Lori did share some slides and we are recording, so we will send a link to both the slides and the recording probably tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have is, I just got out of a meeting with somebody who lives in Northeast Portland, lived here for 2 years, does work in Northeast Portland and live in Northeast Portland. And I happen to be working on a project that is about getting community members civically engaged and involved. And that's why I was interested in joining this, but unfortunately I missed a good half of it. But one question I asked this person is, are you aware of the city redistricting, that's happening? And, and she said, is that new?
Mhm.
So I want to ask you, Lori, how much is this has been marketed, and how do you get more folks to be aware of this really big change that's
Yeah.
on us already, and get more people to get involved? I don't even know if they're going to vote, if they didn't even know that their own neighborhood is going to be maybe in a different district pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a great question, and we run into that all the time. I was one of those people that was always severely underinformed. I didn't read the newspaper, I didn't watch the news, I was just busy in my own life. And now I do both of those, and I can't believe that people still don't know about this. But everybody's like how I was, you're busy with your own life. If you read the paper regularly, the Oregonian or the Willamette Weekly, there's always, almost weekly, there's an article about something going on with the transition. So those are good sources. Watching your local news is also a great source. Like the districting, a mailer was sent out that showed, the 3 different options and talked about these listening sessions. You can go to our to portland.gov/transitions. You can sign up for a newsletter. There's a really informative newsletter that comes out once a month. And I highly encourage you, if you haven't signed up for that yet, it's really nicely done. It's not too much information, but it gives you the highlights. And then you can key in to read more information if you want. Tons of resources. So if you looked for it, you'd find it. And also, I think what will come up is after May and before, the election, you'll see even more. I think it will be hard. Hopefully, it'll be hard to avoid at least hearing about it. But this person you talk to is not alone. Every time I give these presentations, I just gave one on Sunday, and I bet a third of the room had not heard about the districting. So it's really common, and that's why we, our committee is trying to get out. So if you have somebody or an organization that you want us to come out to and talk to about this and educate them, it doesn't have to be a bunch of people. We'll talk to, 5 or 10 people. We're just trying to get out there. So I guess all of you can now be ambassadors for the change and tell people about it and tell them where they can get information. The more the people know, I think the more successful this transition will be.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Lori. And we'll be sending out links to a lot of the resources that Lori mentioned, so you can share with your fellow businesses or anybody that's looking for more information, because there's a lot out there. And like Lori said, it looks like the city has been trying to cover multiple angles, but obviously everybody gets their information from different places. So I want to make sure that we continue to spread the word on this. It looks like Daniela has a question. Hi, Daniela.
Hello. Like a month ago, somebody contacted us, the NIVA group. It's like, hey, so I'm a candidate for District 1 and I will come to talk to your group. And I'm like, well, we are District 4, so I don't think that you want to come to talk with us. And she's like, oh, no, it's a confusion with the district and you are actually District 1. And then looking at the map, it's like, we are obviously District 4. So I'm guessing I mean, when you have somebody that is a candidate and is so confused about what the districts are, I was wondering about that. It's like, why is so much confusion with it?
Yeah, I wonder if they were contacting you because they knew your address. I mean, do you happen to live in District 1? Or-
No, they contact the NEVA emails, so
Oh.
they were contact. I mean, they knew where
Hmm.
we were, but
I had the same thing happen to me
Hmm.
and we figured it out. So I'm going to tell you what happened. The District 1, I believe, is Multnomah County.
Mhm.
You're probably in Multnomah County District 1.
Oh,
And
oh,
it had same thing happened to us. And I was confused too. And I was very like, we went back and forth on email, like 14 different emails back and forth fighting about it. She's like, no, it's Multnomah County. Finally, I got it. So maybe go back and figure out if that was maybe the problem. I don't know. But
so the county
just
district versus city.
yeah, because there's a lot of confusion about that right now, because there is, and they're different and they overlap and they're completely confusing. So something to kind of remember, maybe.
So-
Hopefully that helps.
yeah, I mean, so my question is, when we're talking about the candidates, they should be looking at the map that we saw in the slides, right? Okay.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, so for the city, when a person wants to run for city council, they have to run in the district that they live in. And they can't file unless they can prove that they've been in that location for at least a year from the date of the election. So yes, and if you go to the city elections website, there's actually, you can see who has expressed interest in running, and it separates them by district. So I think when they actually put in their name, they have to know what district. But Melanie, I'm really happy to hear or get that information from you because I want to look that up. I know it's very confusing because Multnomah County encompasses, all of the city of Portland. So there is overlap, and I'm aware of that. We both call it districts, but I should be more aware of that. So I will take note of that and share that with my fellow committee members. So in case this comes up again. So I guess the question is, when someone asks you, you ask them, are you from the city or the county?
That's
Good
a
point.
great point. Thanks for sharing, Melanie, because yeah, this information is specifically for city elections and not county, even though they will be occurring at the same time. So it's slightly confusing there. But this is all just part of a new system that we're kind of figuring out as we go. So great observation there. Okay, any other questions before we wrap it up for the day? And
I have a question. So Lori, in your estimation with the committee that you're on, this is going to be a huge change for the city of Portland. And is there any estimate on the recovery time, right? Or the amount of time it's going to take for people to get on board with it? Is that a thought?
Well, it depends on which part of the transition you're talking about. Like, for instance, ranked choice voting will do a ton of education and we'll get through the election, and then we'll do a review of how did it go and what was the turnout and what were the issues and what can we do better next time. And then, we'll keep doing it, I guess, unless the charter changes again and they take it out. And then on the city government and how it's formed, that's going to take a while, just like any organization. You've all been through organization changes. It takes a while for the culture to take set. Depends on the leadership. Once they're in the service areas, what are they going to learn about how to work together? And so I think it's all heading in the right direction, but I think we have years of improvement ahead of us as they're learning and growing. Like I said, 7,000 people. It's a big organization to turn around. And if you listen to, so one of the things I saw was an interview of Mike Jordan on one of the news stations. They did an extensive interview of him. He was great to listen to, but he said, he calls it, we're going stupid fast. Like if someone would have told him, let's transition this government in 5 years, be like, okay, you know, that's reasonable. This is how we're going to do it. We're doing this in 2 years, less than 2 years. We're going to change this whole form of government and the way that we've been operating for over 100 years. It's going to take a little while. But we're trying
Right.
to do,
I mean,
trying to do
we all,
everything we can to make it effective when they start.
right, you know, we all did the pandemic pivots, right, in
Mhm.
whatever kind of business we have, and that was a lot. And still many people are reeling, you know, and now after what, 4 years? So this is big. So thank you for your honesty there. It's like, this is gonna take some time.
It's huge. It really is a once in a lifetime change, you know,
Yeah.
for the city, for all of us. I don't think you're going to experience it again, you know, that
Yeah. Once they're
you're going
doing
to
it,
switch.
I mean, we're in it now, so we're doing it, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be a transition, especially, you know, like Daniela was asking and Melanie was saying, you know, there's just confusion around language about, oh, districts for Portland versus the county. All of these things are just, woof, confusing.
lot. And
Right?
I
A
think,
lot.
you know, that's a great plug for my last comment, that get involved and start reading about it and go to these listening sessions. I mean, the city transition team is doing a phenomenal job. They are a group of really committed, dedicated, talented individuals, but it's a lot, and they can only do it as well and accommodate your needs for as well as they know what they are. So we all have a stake in seeing this be successful. So, you know, tune in and be a part of it.
You know, I want to make a
much.
comment about that because I think that is what we want, but what we've seen is, you know, there's a lot of work there. One, there's language accessibility, understanding that if you want to see the change you want to see, you got to get involved, right? You can't just imagine it. You got to take action. You got to get activated. Unfortunately, not everybody's inherently that way. And so my question for you maybe is, how do you address that? What solutions have you tried that have been effective in getting people involved? Because I want to believe there are more Portlanders that are inherently interested in, you know, their city thriving and getting involved in what it takes to get there. But the reality is, 5 out of 10 people I talk to every day aren't even aware of what's going on in their own neighborhood, let alone the
Mhm.
world, for various reasons, whether they lack the time to watch the news, they lack the time to pick up a paper. They think what they see on social media is it, which is unfortunate. So, you know, what are some solutions that you've tried and have proven like effective and bringing people together, or yeah, even together, just like to be interested and then want to be involved?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that, and this was part of the transition, is to have representatives for a district. So no longer is your representative busy running the city and representing the whole city. But now you've got, I mean, in our district, each district has about 167,000 people. And we have 3 representatives. Well, before we had one that was, you know, each one was watching over the whole city. So we really have an opportunity to do something different. They're looking at having district offices. So there'd be a place that you could stop by. Now, by the way, there is not a city in the country that we have researched that has a district office that they utilize regularly. We are tasked with at least having something, and then we're going to ask the new city councilors, you know, what do they want? What are your constituents asking for? What do you need? East Portland might be completely different than the west side, who can go right down to City Hall. But that'll be different to have somebody around that their whole job is representing us. And so that'll be a way to get engaged. But your point is well taken. We have one person on our committee who is super dedicated to ensuring that community engagement is a value and is something that is threaded through the work that we're doing. And we're in the process of writing a letter to City Council about the importance of community engagement and how we want to see it be done. So it's being looked at right now, but you're right, it's hard. But I hope some of these foundational changes, like having a representative, will start, and then having a dedicated community engagement person who reports to the city administrator, who their job is figuring out community engagement. So.
Yeah, I think also these listening sessions have been helpful for me
Mhm.
myself too. So I've been seeing more of these in different pockets of Portland. So that's
Oh,
really
good.
encouraging. Yeah. I'm also happy to hear you say about the City of Portland transition team. I did not know there's one. So I am looking at the
Mhm.
website now and learning more about who these folks are, because I think I'll be tapping some of them for my own projects
Yeah, definitely.
around community engagement and involvement. Thank you.
Yeah, we have June Reyes is our community engagement coordinator for our, and I'm happy to send her contact information. Jacob has mine, so I'm happy to connect you if that's helpful.
Yeah, yes, it would be. Thanks, Lori.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you to Lori for taking time out of her schedule to speak with us today. And yeah, I will follow up shortly with some more information. And please feel free to ask questions. And if we can't answer them, we can certainly point you in the right direction. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you.